We are going live. If I can remember where all my buttons are. It's been a minute since I've done a Zoom one. And we'll just do the quick compulsory. Oh, wrong. Alrighty, the quick compulsory audio check.
Okay. Is it working?
Alrighty, the quick compulsory audio check. Yep, it's working.
Okay, good. Good.
Sorry, it's happened more than once where we started a podcast and it's always when we think it's going perfectly, then we find out we're 10 minutes in and there's no audio. So we do our compulsory audio check. Welcome, everybody, to this very sudden next installment to the Arete Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Stevie Wicks Cool Beans Candle Company. More on them in a moment. I am joined, very excitedly joined, by Hailey from the Part of Your Broadway World Podcast. And we're going to talk about musical theater and probably among many other things. But as is usually the case, you start with one topic and it just splinters off into other places. But speaking of musicals, I see you've got your Pink Ladies jacket.
Yeah, I do. I'm so happy about it. Oh my god. I gotta tell you, I was so excited when it came in the mail because it wasn't supposed to be here for another week, and I got early.
That never happens.
I know.
Wild. Get the awkward part out of the way. I'm not a fan of Grease.
You told me this, and I gotta admit, I got slightly mad, slightly mad.
I'm about to make you even madder. Not only am I not a fan of Grease, I kind of hate it. Now, here's the thing. I can explain why I hate it.
Okay, explain. Explain then.
So, first of all, the music is not my cup of tea at all, which that's indifferent, you know. Everybody has different things they like, but yeah. I'm personally a fan of not character development in the literary sense, but like where people come out not necessarily better, but having grown in some way, even a negative character arc, but you can tell somebody's grown. Mm-hmm. By the end of Grease, there is literally no substantial change to anyone except Sandy, and that is arguably a substantially negative character arc, but one that doesn't really make sense.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And that's why, and my problem is it's not that I overthink, but I think about things way too deep. Like, case in point, we did a podcast, the Titanic Deep Dive, which is not at all what people expected, I'm sure. But so I've never really been a fan of Grease at all. But I know I'm in the minority because I know a lot of people that love Grease. Which is why it's a real mystery as to how that show, Rise of the Pink Ladies, not only got canceled, but eliminated from the platform.
Right. I could go on forever about that. Like, I have literally so much to say about that. That it's wild to me. It's wild because Grease was Grease 1 and Grease 2 were both popular movies for people. And this show, it only got like 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That's not enough time for like to get a good rating.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, did they drop all the episodes at once, or were they doing a weekly release?
Oh no, it was all at once. It went.
Wow, and they cut it after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about this on a different platform, and I'm wondering, or have been wondering, like, who pissed off who? Because I can't think.
That's what I'm wondering.
I can't think of another reason why. Because like it happens a lot. Shows get canceled, but with streaming services, they rarely get removed from the platform.
That's what I'm gonna. And what also pisses me off is I found this out yesterday. Actually, they're still selling their merch for that show.
Now, I saw you posted something in one of your stories about
Hmm.
there being what is it? Um, it's not Riverdale. They're basically they're doing a different version of that show on Max.
Yeah.
Rydell High, isn't it?
Rydell High. Yep.
Rydell High. So it's essentially going to be. Now, I'm sure we don't know, but it's. One would think it's just going to be either a remake or a continuation of Rise of the Pink Ladies. That depends on what they can do with the license for the original show.
Right.
But
Um.
do you know anything about that, or was that just an announcement that kind of got made?
That was just a thing I saw on Instagram, like just an announcement that got made. I found out from somebody, I can't remember who told me this, but apparently HBO Max was originally supposed to be Rise of the Pink Lady's home instead of Paramount Plus, and then Paramount Plus got it.
Well, the reason for that is Paramount does own the distribution rights for Grease.
Mm-hmm.
And something very similar actually happened with South Park, but they kind of stuck it to Paramount in a way because this might shed some light on it. So South Park is owned by Paramount. However, when South Park was being shopped around on streaming services, Paramount didn't have its own streaming service. So at the time, HBO Max had the licensing agreement for South Park the series. So currently, HBO has the streaming license for South Park, but Paramount Plus created their streaming service and they commissioned specials from Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Now, given that they're okay, I have to dial this back a bit because Trey and Matt own South Park, but they. What was that? No, I'm sorry. I was incorrect. Let me back up. Trey and Matt own South Park. They signed a distribution deal with HBO Max. Now, I believe it is Paramount that owns Comedy Central, so they had the television rights to distribute South Park, but since they didn't have a streaming service, Matt and Trey were open to shopping it around to streaming platforms, and HBO ended up getting the license. But then Paramount Plus comes around, and Paramount commissions specials from Matt and Trey with the sort of goal of getting South Park to transition over to Paramount Plus. However, Matt and Trey use that to their advantage to basically jack up their commission rate for those specials, kind of dangling a carrot both ways. So they got paid, and they actually made fun of it in their Streaming Wars special. The fact that they kind of jerked them around and ended up getting paid more because of it. So now there may come a day where Paramount Plus has South Park on its platform, but for the moment, the series is on Max and the specials, and they're still commissioned to create more specials, are on Paramount Plus. So it gets really dicey when you're talking about licensing because it's not the same as copyright, and people get those confused a lot. So HBO is a really good example because before all this internet streaming, you had HBO, which was the premium cable network. So you would release a movie in theaters, and then usually around the time it started getting released on home video, HBO would usually license it for a set period of time. Usually, I think it was usually 30 or 60 days, depending upon how long they wanted the movie. And then that movie would play, as far as television goes, it would play exclusively on HBO. And then it would usually get shopped around to like the smaller movie channels like Starz or Cinemax, those kinds of guys, which is why there's a typical path that runs. Now, that goes out the window with original content, but with movies, that was pretty much the formula. But then streaming came along, and the internet made everything more complicated. So the license varies by each individual bit of intellectual property, and it's so complicated that theoretically Paramount could license Grease. Actually, I think this was the case. Paramount can license Grease to one streaming service and not have to license Grease 2. because you would have to technically pay for the license for both of those movies, or you could negotiate a deal where you got both. But it's essentially whatever the content owner wants to do. But it's not straightforward. Like television syndication agreements were pretty uniform and standard. But now it's just a money grab. It's like, who's going to pay us the most money for this intellectual property, which is why content creation is... I don't know if we're still in it, but for a while there was kind of a content war between like Netflix and Hulu as far as their original content was concerned. I don't know if you could really classify it as a war still because there are so many options, but that's essentially... Now, how this ties back into the Pink Ladies is, like you said, HBO Max was originally going to be the distributor for it, but Paramount owns the rights. But it seems like Paramount decided, yeah, we're going to come out with their own streaming service, so we're going to take this back since they did produce it. But I still can't figure out why they canceled it.
I can't figure that out either. I can't figure out why they would even remove it completely.
That's really the big thing. And they did it with the Star Trek series too.
Yeah.
But again, that's just super weird. Now, Star Trek, honestly, Star Trek might make a little bit more sense because there's more than one established canon, but Star Trek takes its canon pretty seriously. So maybe if this series didn't perform quite up to their expectations, which I find hard to believe considering a series like Lower Decks exists, they might want to kind of erase that and pretend like it didn't happen. But yeah, with Pink Ladies, it just doesn't make any sense. But
they're still selling their merch too.
Right. Well, that may be a case of they've already made it, so they might be trying to liquidate it. But I think you could sell Grease merch even without a TV series or movie. Like you would think that would just move on its own.
Right.
But in a broader sense, I introduced you as such, but tell everybody on this side of the podcast world what part of Your Broadway World is all about.
Well, we are essentially we talk about all things Broadway, and sometimes in some episodes we'll talk about certain Disney Broadway shows and how like the movie and like the original movie and the show kind of tie together, and the history behind it, and that's basically it.
Well, really, you can make the case that since 1989 for sure, probably earlier, Disney and musical theater have been pretty intimately linked.
Yeah.
I mean, considering that what really made the Disney Renaissance work was the fact that, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Not Alan Menken. The other guy, Menken and Ashman, Howard Ashman, essentially took the template of the Broadway musical and said, this is how we're going to make this movie, talking about The Little Mermaid. And when that worked, Disney was like, yeah, we're going to do this Broadway thing. Because clearly it resurrected the animation studio and realistically kept the company, certainly that part of it. I guess Eisner technically kept it from going under before the Disney Renaissance, but it brought it back to its former glory. And I really do attribute that, other than the stunning animation that they were able to achieve for the time, but it even holds up today, was that story structure, which is innovative for Disney to pair it that way, but it's also nostalgically familiar because whether most people realize it or not, they've seen a musical.
Yeah.
Usually during their child. Well, like a lot of people don't realize that most of your favorite Disney movies are in fact technically they're but musicals, not even in the sense that there's music, because there's a difference between a score and a musical. The dead giveaway is usually in a musical, the characters are singing, and in a score there's music. In the case of like a movie like Tarzan, tying it back to Disney, Tarzan is not a musical. Tarzan has a really good score, but it is not a musical, and many consider it the death of the Disney Renaissance. But, yeah, so that's something I've always found fascinating, is actually how there seems to be, and this may be a little bit different from you because this might sound a little sexist, but it's true, like, particularly with guys, especially when we're younger, there's this kind of disdain for musicals and really most kinds of music in general. It's like, oh, I don't like that. That's girly. Or a little bit later in life, you're like, oh, that makes you gay if you like musicals. And it's like, oh, son, if you only knew.
Right.
If you only knew.
Yeah.
Our culture is so heavily informed by music and theater that it's just, I mean, Wicked, for example. There are people who have not seen the show Wicked or even heard the entire soundtrack, but they probably have heard Defying Gravity. And then probably, I'd say the biggest case of this is probably Frozen, like, because Frozen, again, is a musical.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's heard Let It Go. Some people hate it, but they've heard it.
I hate it. I hate it.
I like it musically, but just through sheer repetition, I wouldn't say I hate it, but sometimes I'm just kind of like, still. Gosh, when that movie came out, you heard it on the radio daily, multiple times, if you listened to the radio.
Yeah. Well, I hated the movie, so I hated the movie.
Oh my goodness, why? Because I think we might agree on this.
It's just not good. I can't explain how. Like, why do you hate the movie?
Okay, and I actually get a lot of heat for this because a lot of people, roll. There you are.
Okay.
So a lot of people, I end up in this conversation a lot of different ways, but essentially I kind of make the case, if you take Frozen and Tangled, for example, Tangled is a far superior movie in every aspect except maybe just the sheer level of vocal performance in like the major song, which I guess you would consider that Elsa's I Want song, Let It Go.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, the I Want song is, I'm giving you the layman's term. The I Want song is essentially when the protagonist gets to sit down somewhere and literally sing about what they want, the center of their desire, not necessarily their conflict, although it usually ties in. Now, Anna gets hers very early in the form of, what's the name of that song? I know the song, I just can't remember what. For the First Time in Forever.
Okay, yep. I was literally about to say that.
Yep. And then Elsa gets hers at about, it's about the middle of the movie, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Which it is, the I Want song is typically closer to the beginning, but it doesn't have to be. Not get off track. So I consider Tangled a far better movie in just about every aspect. And not to say Mandy Moore's a bad singer, because Mandy Moore's an amazing singer, but I mean, Idina Menzel, like, you know, it's a thing, and I don't think Mandy Moore would take offense to that. But let's compare the two in just a couple of key aspects. For one, just the overall story in Tangled is far better because there's actually a villain. Now, I know there's kind of a villain in Frozen, but let's be realistic. Hans is never truly a threat.
Hans is not a villain. He's not like a true villain, yeah.
He's almost, I mean, he's definitely an antagonist, but he's not, he's more of a trickster character than anything.
Right. Because if you think about it, Mother Gothel has a song. Hans doesn't have any villain song whatsoever.
So he's not a villain in character or structure.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's just, quick aside, Disney knocks it out of the park with villain songs. Just generally speaking.
Yeah.
And Mother Gothel has a great villain song.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You know who has a good villain song?
Frollo?
Frollo. I love Hellfire. It's like the best movie.
Okay, weird confession time. So, and I probably will never achieve this goal, but I do have a personal goal of playing Frollo in some capacity, probably like a community theater.
I love that.
I'll do whatever they want me to do as long as I get to sing that song.
I love that. I love that for you.
I want that so bad.
I love that for you.
But, well, Hunchback of Notre Dame, I'm going to come back to that. We're going to jump around a lot. So I'll try to keep it cohesive. But that just incentivizes you to watch the entire podcast. So, Tangled, much better villain. Not even much better villain. It's arguable that Frozen doesn't even really have one. Mm-hmm. And neither does Frozen 2 for that matter. So then the next aspect, overall animation's about the same, even though Frozen's newer. So I call that a win for Tangled because it's older and it still looks just as good. Let's see. Frozen's a little bit more tongue-in-cheek with the more modern ways of thought and speech. Even the physical comedy is better in Tangled. I would say the overall structure of Tangled is better because there's this weird... It's not just Frozen, but Frozen does this. There's this moment in about the third act, about the beginning of the third act, where it just kind of starts to feel like it's meandering a smidge. It's guilty of that. Tangled doesn't have that. Tangled is... There are moments where we slow down, but we're always... The pacing's always going somewhere. Let's see, what else is there? There's a lot. There's a lot of reasons. Physical comedy's better. The male lead's more entertaining. Now, I don't dislike Kristoff as a character, but let's be real, he's no Flynn.
No.
He's no Flynn.
No.
The climax of the movie, again, Tangled just has more weight.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Emotional and just from a story perspective, because the whole story's about been preserving Rapunzel's hair because it holds the key to her power. And realistically, it's her identity, much like Elsa's powers are her identity. However, Rapunzel gives that away without a second thought, just to stick it to Mother Gothel.
Right.
Like, there's so much more emotional weight there, because that's who Rapunzel has been her entire life. And not in a trivial way like Anna views Hans for most of the movie. It's like, these are two characters, and I love the fact, this is so subtle, but I love how in Tangled they start out, it's not really that Rapunzel dislikes him, and it's not really that Flynn dislikes Rapunzel, it's just that Rapunzel kind of annoys Flynn because he doesn't want to have to be babysitting, and Rapunzel is at first scared of him, and then is kind of using him, and then that just organically grows into what they then become, whereas Anna, and again, they play it for laughs, but Anna's like, oh, a boy.
Right. Although I will say I don't really like because there's a Tangled TV show that they did like a couple years ago.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's called Tangled's Adventure or something like that. I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up later. But it's terrible. It's terrible.
Again, I was going to say that's often the case when Disney creates a TV show based on a movie, but that actually is not necessarily true, because they'd had an Aladdin series, they had a Little Mermaid series, and from what I've seen, when I was growing up, I saw some episodes of the Little Mermaid series, and from what I could tell, it was decent. The Aladdin series is highly underrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Aladdin series is actually quite good, and I think did they do a Tarzan series? I can't remember. But it doesn't matter, because Tarzan doesn't count, because it's not a musical. But yeah, so Tangled is superior in overall musical numbers too. I mean, I know people love Frozen, but I'm sorry, the music's just a smidge better in Tangled, in my opinion, and the structure of the musical, in my opinion, is better. Which that probably has to do with Frozen having so many more main characters. Did we lose you? Well, while we're... Oh, there you are. Live.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
Yeah, no, sorry. I got a phone call and it was like, I don't want to answer right now.
Gotta love technology.
So great.
Yeah, so better conflict, better musical structure, better overall music, better characters, the fact that there's a villain, better physical comedy, better comedy in general, actually. And now this is a personal thing of mine. Tangled has better side characters, because what's the horse's name? Magnus, I think? Or yeah. Maximus? Maximus, yeah. Maximus is so much funnier than Olaf, and he doesn't even speak. And I love Josh Gad, but I hate Olaf.
Oh, I don't like him.
Yeah, see, I found him more annoying than anything.
He's cute, but like he's a little, yeah.
Yeah, and Pascal's hilarious without even trying. So.
Oh yeah, the little tongue in the ear thing.
And then anybody who's ever had a pet has had that moment where your animal in whatever form is just tired of your shit and gives you that look. Just stop. What are you doing? But yeah, so I'm glad one other person agrees with me that Frozen is not. It's not that it's a terrible movie, but it's not. It's like
one that you watch every day.
A lot of kids did. I think kids loved it though because of how simple it was, which is probably why I didn't care for it as much.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad they made it, but Frozen 2 was a massive disappointment.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the theater and I'm just like, how is everybody liking this? Like, this is mediocre.
Yeah. I agree.
I mean, it looked great.
It looked fantastic.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It was a beautiful film, but it's just like all these stunning visuals and all these, and I hate to say it this way, but like we've heard Idina Menzel Belt. She's too good.
Yeah.
I'm no longer wowed by Idina Menzel being able to hold notes.
You're going to hate this too, because I just found this out a month ago. They're making a third.
Oh, I figured.
They're making a third. Why? There's nothing left.
Oh, no. See, here's the thing, though, and I think they could have done something very interesting with Frozen 2. They just didn't want to do it. Because I was intrigued by the idea that Elsa was feeling... What's the word? I was intrigued by the idea of Elsa feeling like an other, even though she's been accepted by the people of Arendelle. It's like when you're... There's a lack of camaraderie because nobody understands Elsa's life like Elsa does. Everyone can try and people can be there for her, but another elemental power user would identify with Elsa more than anybody else in the world, which is where I thought they were going with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into some... It's not that it's not a story we're telling, but just the way they went there, it ended up being this weird... Not weird, that's not the right word. This kind of out of left field commentary on colonization.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, there's a story to be told there, but the way they went about it was just so out of left field because you're like, oh, okay, this is not where I thought we were going. It's like, and once again, we don't have a true villain. We have like a historical villain, but he's not somebody that you're actively trying to resist. It's actions that are being undone, which again, right. Those are stories we're telling, but it's certainly not a traditional Disney-esque narrative, which Disney's been going away from villains for a while now. Because that's the main reason I didn't really... I mean, Encanto was cute and all, but it just didn't carry that much weight for me. Now, I know a lot of people liked that whole generational trauma theme, but I argued with somebody on Instagram just the other day because we put up a short talking about how Disney's going away from villains. And they're like, well, grandmother was the villain. I'm like, no. Grandmother was an antagonist, maybe. And I say maybe because she wasn't actively resisting Mirabelle. She was just trying to get Mirabelle out of her way. because she thought what she was doing was right. And it turns out she was just wrong, which that's a character arc, but that does not make her a villain. I don't know too many villains that are going out of their way to protect their family and town unless it turns into an ends justify the means sort of thing, which, I mean, this sounds bad, but making your kids feel bad, I don't think really translates to full-blown evil unless you're doing it maliciously.
Right.
As a form of like psychological torture, which, once again, that's another example. This is a story we're telling, but it's outside of your traditional Disney sort of traditional Disney-esque storytelling.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Like, and like I said, like, it's a cute. Encanto's a cute movie. It's a cute movie. Like my 4-year-old great niece loves that movie, and I kind of like it, but it's just I can't like watch it. I can only watch it once.
I actually think what I said after I watched it was like, okay, I'm glad I watched it, but I don't think I'll ever watch it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is a shame because Mirabelle as a character is charming as hell.
Yeah.
Like I said that I was like, wow, I really like this character.
Yeah, me too.
It's just a shame that she doesn't have any. It's not that she doesn't have stakes, but I guess it's just there's not really a moment where Mirabelle has to necessarily rise to the occasion and thwart any sort of real imminent danger. I guess she's up against a clock, so to speak, but
I like the fact that like I like the message of Encanto. Like he's like you don't need a gift kind of thing to be special, but it's like
But that's not really the message of the movie though, because Disney flips a 180 at the very end and everybody gets their gifts back.
Right.
I think it would have been a lot, which I understand why they were scared to do it, because if nobody has their gifts, there can be no sequel, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have been, and actually, I think the movie would have been a lot better if at the end of the movie, because everybody loses their gifts, right? And then they start to rebuild the house. And if that were the end of the movie and it became a message of like, yeah, you know, it kind of sucks that we lost our powers and everything, but I mean, we're still a family and that's what matters.
Yeah.
I can see how that might upset the kids though.
Mm-hmm.
But I digress. And I don't know, if you really think about it, does Mirabelle have an I Want song? She's definitely got an exposition song at the beginning.
Waiting on a miracle, isn't that the song?
Oh, yep, you're right. I forgot about it. Because I figured that's because Encanto is definitely a musical. Yeah. I was just waiting for it. And I actually hate the villain song in that movie, which isn't even a villain song because there's no villain.
Right.
I feel, to me, we don't talk about Bruno. I have a feeling it's kind of like You and Let It Go. I hate that song.
I'm on like the fence. I'm on the fence. I like it, but I also don't.
Ironically, I think it's... And the thing of it is, I think I only hate it because I heard it everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because objectively, it's not a bad song. It's actually a pretty good song. I'm amazed Lin-Manuel Miranda was able to write such a masterpiece. But... Well, hang on. Did he write that? Because it didn't have any rapping.
Yeah, he did. He said that he wrote all the songs. Which I'm like,
He did not write all the songs, though. There's a song at the end, and I forget who sings it. It's when they go down to the river. But again, that's not part of the musical, though. That's kind of a soundtrack edition.
Yeah.
But speaking of he who I've already named, maybe you can help me here because I don't know what I'm missing with Mr. Lin-Manuel Miranda.
I already know what you're gonna talk about. Oh my god.
I'm not saying he's a bad songwriter.
Yeah.
I just think he's tremendously overrated. Considering...
Can I say that he's a bad songwriter?
Oh, okay. Let's do tell. Because I will say, I have a little bit of a background in music, but I'm by no means an expert. Like, I can read music. I used to be able to play some instruments. I can sing on a super basic level. But I'm not a composer, so...
I mean, I'm not either, but I will say, the Hamilton soundtrack, bangers. Like, I love it. Like, I love Hamilton. That stupid Scuttlebutt song from The Little Mermaid.
That's not a song. That is torture.
That's bleeding ears torture.
Now, is it torture, though? Because, which, I mean, I don't like the song, even if the vocals were different. But is that song ear-bleeding because of the vocalist? Or because the song itself is just objectively that bad?
It's objectively that bad. In my opinion.
I mean, it's not a good song at all. And that's something, I can go on a diatribe about Disney adding in songs for their live-action remakes that completely throws off the flow of the musical. Because they've done it every single time that one of their live action adaptations has been a musical. They've done it every single time. They've added at least one number, usually two, that just completely throw off the flow.
Right.
There's always at least one number that feels like they just shoehorned it in and it comes out of nowhere and it completely undermines the basically the Mencken magic, the Mencken and I keep saying Howard Shore. That's not right. I keep forgetting the other guy, but the magic of the Disney Renaissance format.
Yeah.
But really, you like Hamilton. I probably need to watch the whole thing again because I'll be honest, I turned it off. It's definitely not my cup of tea, but I mean everybody loved it. I don't get it.
It won Tonys though.
Okay. You're telling me there's never been a show that won a Tony that shouldn't have won?
Okay, touche.
It's kind of like when people say, "But it won an Oscar." It's like, really? I saw. Oh God, what's that? What's the movie that won? It's the year that I lost any faith whatsoever. Moon Knight. No, not Moon Knight. That's a TV show. Hang on.
La La Land.
Moonlight. No, La La Land was actually good. I liked La La Land a lot.
Really? I haven't seen it.
La La Land is really interesting because what it is it's a musical. How do I describe that? This is not a real term, but it's like an organic musical. It's a movie that exists in a universe where the Broadway musical is just how the universe works. Mm-hmm. The way they go into musical numbers is so seamless. It's absolutely beautiful. Mm. I was surprised. Do what?
I don't like Emma Stone, so that's why I didn't watch it.
You might like her in this movie. I was surprised because I was like, really? Emma Stone's going to be in a musical? Okay.
But she never pegged me as that type, you know?
And I'll tell you what, that's probably why I wasn't expecting it, but it's a pretty good movie. And the ending is tremendous. Mm-hmm. I forget what I was looking up, so it'll come back to me. My brain's interesting.
Although Ryan Gosling, I am going to see this movie. I'm going to see the Barbie movie. I'm so excited for this because Ryan Gosling is Ken. I'm so excited to see him as Ken. It looks hilarious.
We'll see. I can't see myself watching the Barbie movie. Although I will say it seems like they're doing it about the best way you could because it seems, judging from the trailer, it seems like it's very tongue-in-cheek, which I mean, a Barbie movie can't take itself too seriously.
Right.
Unless you're making an actual like biopic of the origin of the doll, which I think could be very interesting, but that's not what this movie is.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm more hopeful for Margot Robbie as Barbie than I ever was with her as Harley Quinn.
Now, see, I liked her Harley Quinn.
I liked it. I just didn't like the movie itself.
Well, which one though?
Both.
Okay, so technically there's been 3. Which ones are you talking about?
Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad, and I can't remember the third one.
They made the Suicide Squad.
Oh, I haven't seen that one, so I can't say if I hate that one or not. So
it's the best one of the 3, but it's not great, but it's definitely an improvement on Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
And Birds of Prey just should never have been. You want to talk about something that should be removed from platforms? Just get rid of Birds of Prey.
Seriously.
That movie was so horrendously bad.
As if we need to know Harley's origin story and like her relationship with Joker and.
You know, that's a really interesting take. That honestly, until the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, I might have disagreed with you, because the general rule in filmmaking is you have to assume that your audience doesn't know anything. But
yeah.
Tom Holland Spider-Man movies pretty well proved that when you've got an established fan base like that, listen, everybody who's going to care already knows how Spider-Man got his powers.
Yeah.
You don't have to go into it.
Right.
And so anybody who's going to care about the characterization of Harley Quinn already knows one of several origin stories for her. They'd all apply. Like, you can pick your favorite and move on.
Right.
So, and besides, they kind of give you a bit of exposition when they're introducing the members of the Suicide Squad. So you just know, oh, it's Joker's girlfriend. She's insane. Psychiatrist. Got it. You know?
Like, it just, when I watched it, I got really confused because, like, they showed the part where she, like, falls in, like, she dives into the vat of chemicals to become Harley Quinn, like, for Joker. And it's like, there's loopholes in that, I feel like, because, like, in reality, that would have killed you.
Yeah, and besides, I think in most of the origin stories for Harley Quinn, she doesn't get dumped into chemicals. She just goes insane because Joker just mind bends her. For everyone who's wondering, the Mad Love story arc is the original origin story for Harley Quinn. And fun fact about Harley Quinn, she was a character that was created exclusively for the animated series and was supposed to be a one-off character, but she was so popular that they actually wrote her into the comic book canon. So, fun little tidbit that all the Harley Quinn fans already knew.
Are you talking about the one, because there's a animated TV show that Hailey Kiyoko was Harley?
That's the most recent one. I'm talking about the original Batman the Animated Series for 1992.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. Although her rendition of Harley Quinn's been fairly popular, although I'll be honest, I lost interest in the show. It started out really good, but it's just kind of like you fall into a trap with adult-oriented animation, I should say, because it's like, how many innuendos can we make? And it's like, it's possible, but you got to be very good at it.
Yeah.
But dialing back, so I got to add, I think I've asked you this before, but I can't remember. What's your favorite Broadway show? Oh, I know the answer to this, but go ahead and tell everybody.
Jagged Little Pill.
And for those people who don't know, you can find out all about Jagged Little Pill by going to the Part of Your Broadway World YouTube page or on Spotify, soon to be on other platforms. And their debut episode was about Jagged Little Pill. And for all you Alanis Morissette fans out there who aren't aware of it, you'll definitely want to check it out. Is it going on tour? I thought I saw you say.
Yeah, it is on tour. It's on tour. Yep.
It is on tour.
It is on tour.
Okay, just for the sake of conversation, what's your second favorite Broadway musical? You're like all of them.
Truly, all of them. Probably Grease. I love Grease.
I will say, though, I should have brought this up earlier. I did, and believe it or not, this was a high school rendition of Grease, and it had no business being as good as it was. I much preferred the stage version than the movie, which may have had something to do that they were actual high schoolers playing high schoolers, as opposed to 35-year-olds.
I think that before, because I was researching this, I think before any of the movies came out, Grease was on Broadway, and then they went from Broadway to the movies, and then the TV show that got canceled and taken off.
Which hopefully gets revived. It's fun. I have a very, not to talk about myself, but I have a very interesting origin story when it comes to my love of musical theater. I resisted it for a long time, and my favorite musical of all time is West Side Story, and there's a very, very specific to my life reason why. And it's because it seemed like when I was growing up and in school, it seemed like every time we had a substitute teacher, particularly in musical classes, but even sometimes for non-musical classes, they just put on West Side Story, the original version, which is like everybody makes jokes. You know, people who've never seen the show, they know the whole like dance fighting gags and whatnot. Scrubs even makes a hilarious reference to that, but I'd always ignore it because I'm like, ugh, you know, it's a musical.
I watched it a ton because I love Cheetah Rivera. I love Cheetah Rivera.
Now, who does she play?
She plays oh, what's her name? Maria's friend that is dating her brother, I think.
So are you talking about the 2021 version?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, that's Rita Moreno.
So Rita Moreno, I can't remember.
Yeah, well,
that's what I meant. Yeah.
In the original.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rita played Anita in the original.
Anita. Yeah. And then in the 2021 version,
she takes on the role of Doc.
Yeah.
But they
love that.
Yeah. It worked. And
it worked.
That's a case of I totally get it because Rita Moreno was part of the original movie. It's about the only way you can get her in there. It's just, oh, she's Doc's wife. In this version, Doc passed away, and you know, makes sense, makes perfect sense. So I was all for that. What I wasn't all for was giving her, is it Someday or Somewhere? The musical number, Somewhere. Yeah, I should know that. It's not that she did a bad job. I quite liked it, but that's a Tony and Maria number.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion, because it's them talking about how they're going to get out of this and them talking about how they're going to find a place where they can be together.
I never pegged Ansel Elgort as a singer.
I didn't either.
I was pleasantly surprised.
I was thrilled because
Me too.
I'll be brutally honest. I'm a fan now, but prior to that, I wasn't a big fan of the guy because I'd only seen him in The Fault in Our Stars, which is that movie's got some problems, and I'd seen him in the Divergent series, so I just hadn't really seen his chops. He came across as kind of wooden in all of them, but I was wrong. And then I found out that there were two numbers, but I know at least Maria, he sang that live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, okay, you've got my attention.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Rachel Zegler, oh my God, I love her.
That was her film debut too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and I remember I was very excited. Of course, it was just me. I was very disappointed how empty the theater was because I went to see it, not opening night, but opening weekend.
Yeah.
And I was very disappointed with how empty the theater was. Like, there were people there, but it should have been packed because the movie's a masterpiece.
Yeah, same here. Because I also went to go see it opening weekend, and it wasn't packed. I'm like, what the hell? It's West Side Story. Come on.
I literally was like, I have to get my ticket now. because
Right.
it's going to be full. For shame. But yeah, when I saw her, the first shot at first was Maria, and I'm like, oh, that's perfect.
I mean, when they sang Tonight, I like wept. I wept.
They obviously had chemistry.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they sang Tonight, and I was very concerned when I heard that they were remaking West Side Story until I saw that Steven Spielberg was attached, and I was like, okay, we're fine.
Yeah. Yep.
We're fine. It's going to be good. I have questions, but Steven's never screwed up.
No.
And I loved it because it fixed some of the issues that were just of the time, both culturally and from a technology standpoint. I had very, very few criticisms, and they were so minor that I wouldn't even call them criticisms. It's just it's not how I would have done it, but I get it.
Yeah.
And yet he managed to preserve the magic of the original, because like there's still like the gangster dancing, but it's got a little bit more of an edge, so it comes across as a little bit less silly, but it's still very much dancing. Mm-hmm. It's not frilly fighting. Like when they're fighting, it looks like they're fighting, but you still have the musical numbers. They didn't. The one thing, this is one of my minor criticisms of it. So I love the scene in the original when Tony and Maria lock eyes on the dance floor and then everything kind of disappears. Mm-hmm. Now, I get why they did it the way they did it in Steven Spielberg's version, because it was being a little bit more realistic. But I always saw that as the world disappeared and it was just the two of them, even though the entire world was still around them. So I get why they changed it. I wouldn't have done it, but I get it. You know, it's one of those things.
Because that scene's so good. And I love that scene.
Yeah, and I assume, and this is shameful, I've never seen West Side Story on stage. I want to, I need to. I almost did, but then it's, why didn't I? I can't remember why I didn't. I was not able to, but regardless. I imagine, have you seen it on stage?
No.
Okay. I would imagine they achieved that with lights. Kind of like they did in the movie. So that's one of the reasons, out of just sheer curiosity. And if anybody's watching this in the comments, if you have seen it on stage, let me know if that's how they do it, because I imagine that's how they would do it. And they really improved on the musical number America, because it's really good in the original.
Yeah.
But holy crap, they pull out all the stops in Spielberg's.
Is like, oh, I love Ariana DeBose.
She's very good.
She is.
She's very talented. Everybody in that movie's phenomenal. Everybody gets more characterization too. Bernardo's a more fleshed out character. Even Chino's a more fleshed out character.
Yeah.
Anita definitely is a more fleshed out character, and she was complex in the original.
I also I will say why I think Rachel Zegler was perfect as Maria. I will say this: the scene at the very, very end, and if you haven't seen it, I assume people have seen, so I'm not gonna say sorry for if it's spoiled.
Spoiler alert: the movie's 2 years old, and the original's like almost 70 years old. So
yeah. So if you've seen it, I mean, I guarantee you that you've seen it. When Tony dies, Rachel Zegler's that scene is perfect. Like you can see the emotion. Like she's perfect at that emotion.
And this is so minor, but I loved it, is the fact that people actually react normally, like how you should react when somebody points a gun at you.
Yeah.
Like it's very subtle, but like I've seen so many movies where it's like, I'm talking normal everyday people, not like some hardened like badass. I mean, if somebody points a gun at you, you're going to tense up.
Yeah.
And everybody has an appropriate reaction. So, and it was very subtle, and that helps feed her motivation, because she realizes and then she delivers that line like, how many bullets are left? How many of you can I take and then leave one for myself? Something like that. Right. I'm forgetting the exact, and yeah, she was fantastic. And you get not so much from Tony in this version, but that makes sense. You get in the Spielberg version, the most recent one, you get kind of the resistance from Maria because she knows that, as is true in so many relationships, the girl is typically the one who's like, well, this isn't going to be as cut and dry as you think, Buster. Like,
right.
My family hates you.
Yeah.
And you get a little bit of her resistance in the beginning, which I liked. It was very subtle, but it was very good, as opposed to the original where they just look at each other and go, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got the sense that he was kind of annoying her at first.
Yeah. And I also love Ariana DeBose and Rachel Zegler's performance together with a boy like that song too.
Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And I even liked it depends, because I like both renditions of G Officer Krupke.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say one's necessarily better than the other, but I get more laughter out of the original, but I get more of the edge out of the new one.
Yeah.
So I like them both, but for different reasons. Like, don't get me wrong, the new one's still funny, but you get more of that anger and frustration and less just like comedy. Although I quote that song way too often in my personal life. So I'll just randomly just hit some of that and people look at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I'm just like, come on.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Where was I? Somewhere I was just like, I busted out the "we're disturbed" part, and everybody's just looking at me like, "What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "It's me. It's my brain. Leave me alone."
It's my brain.
You should watch West Side Story. If you don't laugh at that joke, you're not cool. Says the guy who's quoting West Side Story. Well, says the guy who's quoting West Side Story. But I digress. Or I did. I did one time.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've been trying to figure out a topic for next week's episode. I might just do West Side Story just because of this.
Yeah, that's true. We should save some, because I called dibs already.
Yeah, I know you did. You keep texting me like, I called dibs. I'm like, I know you called dibs.
I'm just reminding you. That's good. It gives me an excuse to watch both of them.
Yeah. Not
that I need one. But I will say one time, somebody in passing said social disease, and I literally just out of nowhere was like, hey, I got a social disease.
Oh.
I couldn't help myself. It just shot in my brain, and I'm just...
It's weird. It's very, specific words. It jots the memory.
I just couldn't help myself. That was fun. And actually, I have this weird penchant, which is odd because I don't know anybody named Maria, but I will just out of nowhere just be like, Maria, 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 Maria.
And it's just look at you like, what?
I mean, I'm waiting for the day for me to do that and somebody just be like, yes. It's going to happen. It's going to happen one of these days.
It's going to happen.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, because it's not like Maria's a rare name.
Yeah.
That, or I imagine if a Maria is in earshot, she probably just walks faster in the other direction.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I would. But. So, speaking of West Side... Oh, so the whole point of my story... Sorry. This is what it's like talking to me. Anybody who watches my podcast knows. So, all throughout school... Anytime there was a substitute, they just put on West Side Story.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day, I'll never forget, because I was in band, teacher was out, put on West Side Story, and I was so bored that I said, screw it, I'm just going to watch the damn movie. And then I watched the movie. And I don't know what it was, because I knew what happened. Like, you heard it enough. But I watched it, and I just let it hit me. And by the end of it, I was like, holy I got it. Like, I finally got it. And I finally understood the tragedy of it all, how it was inevitable, and arguably a better telling of Romeo and Juliet than Romeo and Juliet, because it is truly like they might have been able to avoid it, but considering the fact that they're teenagers and stupid, like, it's kind of unavoidable. And the whole message is that the racism was going to keep them from being together anyway.
Right.
So it just ended up becoming a full-blown tragedy because they tried to, tried to do it anyway.
Right. But didn't Anita, like, tell Maria, like, okay, I give up, just go be with him? And
yes, but then when she goes to Doc's to give Tony the message that Maria's going to come there, that's when the Jets screw everything up.
Yeah.
So that ties into the whole theme of to me, that scene always talks, other than the fact that people are shitty, it pushes the fact more, which is why I think it's superior to Romeo and Juliet in telling that kind of story, even though Romeo and Juliet technically, well, they didn't do it first, but it's the most well-known. Because Romeo and Juliet is just a ripoff of Tristan and Isolde, but that's another topic. That to me has always been like the representation of this was unavoidable. This was an unavoidable tragedy because these prejudices exist in such a capacity that no matter what you do, it's inescapable. And at some point, it's going to cause things to go bad, no matter what happens.
Right.
Which couldn't happen today because, Maria would have just texted him. But
I want to see. I want to see that version of just like.
Actually, that's actually an easy hurdle to get around, is because Tony obviously would have lost his phone at the Rumble.
I want to see like a Gen Z version of that story.
Oh God. You could do it, but it would have to be a comedy.
Oh, just the phones. Hey.
Yeah, but the title is written like WS and then the book emoji.
Oh.
And all the boomers like me are just be like, WS book? And then all the kids will be like, oh, West Side Story. Sounds lit.
I could just imagine that scene of like Tony just be like, hey, where are you at? Like,
where are you? The letters. She's like, I'm finna come to numeral 2 you hair ratchet. And then Tony just writes, I bet. And then that's the movie. We should write this.
We should write this.
We should write this.
We should write this.
WS book emoji.
Speaking of writing something, I just, as you said that, I remembered something. Because, Cold Brew, from my TikTok, we were texting like 2 days ago, I think, and we have decided to make Rise of the Pink Ladies a musical.
Why not?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, that seems like it would be a really good musical.
Yeah.
I was going to say something. I started making the joke about the Gen Z. Oh, so we just figured it out, but what I was going to say is there's a lot of shows out there that you couldn't remake today just because technology would render most of the plot points moot. And one of the, you probably, I don't know how old you are, it doesn't matter, but I doubt you've heard of the show. It was around in like the mid to late 90s, called Early Edition.
No.
Okay, I figured not. So the whole reason I came across this show was because in the house I grew up in, like cable was around, but we didn't have it because we lived in the middle of nowhere. And unfortunately, when I was growing up, when you have 4.5 channels, you watch whatever's on TV. And that means when mom or dad is watching TV, you watch what they're watching or you go do something else. So I watched what my parents watched, and one of the shows that my dad would watch was Early Edition. And the concept of the show is there's a guy who lives in Chicago, and he gets tomorrow's newspaper today. And I often imagine, I'm like, well, because half the plot points are like, the main character's name is Gary, and it's like, we can't get a hold of Gary. We don't know where he is. And I'm like, if he had a cell phone, none of this would happen. It's like he wouldn't have to track anybody down. He could just put out a Facebook post. Like,
true. It's true. Especially like with oh, what was that TV that like what was that movie that like the Truman Show?
yeah.
That movie? It's like if none of that would have happened, everything would have been fine. Like, you know, I don't understand. I don't get that plot very much because it's like, this is stupid.
It seems like it's funny because it's critiquing reality TV before reality TV was really a thing.
Yeah.
But it's a stretch, but it works for the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's a real stretch, and not to mention just how, like, I can't speak for every country, but like that would never happen here. Like, there would be so much outrage at even the suggestion of doing something like that. For those of you who don't know, you should watch The Truman Show. It's a great movie. But the concept is they take a baby, a literal baby, and they put him in an artificial environment, I guess would be an appropriate way to say it. And they broadcast it. Like, it's a is it a 24/7 broadcast, or is they broadcast only certain, I can't remember. But anyway, it's called The Truman Show. And you're watching a human being live his life, and he doesn't know that he's living in a TV show, essentially. And then, without giving too much away, he does eventually discover it, but you'll find out how and why. It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, The Truman Show is one of those movies where, like, the first time you watch it, it's really good, and then after that, it's like, yeah, I'll watch it, but it's like, it doesn't have the oomph it did.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I will say, I still cry at Titanic, so that movie I'll watch.
Titanic's another movie where when it came out, I was largely unimpressed. But geez, when it was 1997, how old was I? I was 10 or 11. Yeah, I was 11 because it came out in December. Yeah, I was unimpressed. I didn't really hardcore appreciate Titanic till I was in my 30s.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't born till like 98, so I wasn't around when it was first coming out, but like as the years went on, I was watching it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Oh no, it is a masterpiece of a film, and I really don't like blowing that much smoke to James Cameron, but I mean, it is a masterpiece of a film, and it holds up really well. I have people have heard me joke about this on my other podcasts. I have a TV in my living room that is far too big for the room. I bought it before I bought my current house, and I'm not getting rid of that giant ass TV because it's great. I love it, but it looks great on that TV, and it's way too close to my face. So if it looks good on that, it just looks good.
Yeah,
takes up almost the entire wall. I love it though. The room I had it in was a lot bigger. It wasn't too big for the room before, so give me a break. I like big TVs. Anyway. And for those of you who may be interested, I mentioned it before, but on the Average Intelligence Podcast, still on YouTube, or Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon, all those audio streaming platforms, we did an episode where I do a Titanic deep dive, but it's not what you think. I was randomly watching Titanic because I love the music from Titanic. Mm-hmm. And inevitably, when I listen to the music, I'm like, now I want to watch Titanic. So I watch it fairly often. Not as often as you would, like, not all the time, because it is like a 3-hour movie, so it's a bit of an undertaking. Yeah. It's not something you can just pop in randomly and know you're going to finish it. But
I will say I feel weird. I feel weird watching Titanic now ever since what happened recently happened with like the implosion.
I'm not trying to make a joke out of this, but you know, there's a reason that anytime they've tried to like make another Titanic, they've scrapped it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess I am a little bit superstitious, but it's like, if there is a jinx, it exists near that boat.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just don't do it. It's like the Titanic, the actual disaster, can be summed up with one word, and that's hubris. And it seems like, that's a perfect example. It's like, why would I cannot fathom any reason why I would want to go in a submarine that has not been tested, which I'm sure they were told it was tested, but the CEO knew better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I would never feel compelled to get into a kind of craft like that, to physically go down. We've got pictures and video. I'm good with that. They made a movie. Yeah. I'm good with that. Yeah. It's like this boat sank because of the hubris of men who thought that they were above nature.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to tempt nature again, and probably even a worse way if you think about it, because we know what pressure is down there. It's like they didn't see the iceberg until the last minute.
Yeah.
And how can you possibly fathom that going well for you?
Right, exactly. And I think I told my mom this. I was like, see, I would have never paid that much money to go in a tiny submarine, to go all the way down to the Titanic. We got pictures, we got video. I'm good. My ass is staying right here.
Well, and not only that, I wouldn't say, well, when I say I'm not afraid of the ocean, I have a healthy respect for the ocean. Which is like, I'm not afraid to get in the water, but like, I know what's in there, and I know what it can do to me. So,
I know what it can do.
Yeah, I've been carried away by current before, so So thankfully, I'm a decent swimmer, so thankfully I got out of it before I got really taken out. But like, it can grab you really fast.
Yeah.
And it's like, we've seen all the videos of shark attacks and just people disappearing people literally disappearing in the ocean and never being seen again. So I'd rather not tempt fate. So that's just me. And I've always kind of joked, I'm only half joking though. If I ever do go on any sort of ship or cruise, I'm bringing an inflatable raft. Sorry, not sorry. Like, I'm bringing my own lifeboat.
Safety first, kids.
I mean, I'm sorry. Why would you not? They're collapsible. You can get one that when it's undone, it's like this big.
Right.
Like, why would you not?
Right, exactly.
I'm a bring your own lifeboat kind of guy.
That's why I've always wanted to go on a Disney cruise, but I'm like, I don't want to because I don't want to die.
Just bring your own lifeboat and a bunch of. I mean, you could, if you prepare, you can probably make a real go at it, but yeah. So I bring my own lifeboat and a healthy supply of fresh water, and we'll figure it out. Figure out the rest.
Just have like a little bag of rations like on you at all times.
I mean, not for nothing. That seems pretty smart to me. But yeah. I'm also the guy who carries around an emergency kit in my car, so that's just.
But that's smart though. That's smart.
Hey, I'm sorry. You gotta carry, if nothing else, you gotta carry a tire repair kit in your vehicle.
Yeah.
It will save you so much money.
Yeah.
But going back to Titanic, so I was watching it randomly one day, and I just had a thought. Like, I started noticing things, and then the more I watched it, the more of these things I noticed. So then I started writing stuff down, and then I came up with some theories, and then I was like, I told Eric, my co-host, and I'm like, I know this sounds super weird, but I really want to do a Titanic podcast. And then lo and behold, they did the special anniversary re-release of it. And I was like, oh, we got to do it now. Like, now it's topical. But I'm not going to spoil it, but you can see that episode's still on YouTube. So if you want to check it out, you can. There's plenty of shorts content so you can get the gist of it before you commit to watching a whole episode. Slightly controversial views, but first of all, I admit that it's purely my speculation. I have no reason to believe they did this, but there's a lot of stuff that, for a 3-hour movie and it all kind of works, there's something there for sure. But the music's great.
Fun fact about the movie, and I just found this out: the scene with like the drunk guy in all white. that like kept drinking, that was an actual person, and he actually lived because he was filled with alcohol.
There's actually a lot of random side characters in the background that are based on real people.
Yeah.
And James Cameron was adamant, like so far as to replicate their dress, physically what they were wearing, because they have photographs of these people, and they were even, some of them were even so precise that they were where they were on the ship when it went down. Like they went to that level of detail.
Yeah.
So that whole movie, and I hate to say it, but that's one of the problems with Hollywood is they just don't put that much attention to detail into most movies anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it suffers mostly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, that was immaculate down to they replicated so many key areas of the boat perfectly. And it was helpful because they had pictures and stuff to go off of. And it's not like they were, it's not like when you're replicating, say, you know, a movie set during the medieval period when you have some speculation, but you can kind of have questionable sources and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like if you have that much to go off of, there really is no excuse to not do that, because there are people who do that kind of stuff for a living. Like there are people who study the Titanic for a living. And so they would know, and thankfully James Cameron hired them. But are you aware of the night sky controversy of Titanic? So when they released the theatrical cut, there were astrophysicists, namely Neil deGrasse Tyson, who looked at the night sky, and he realized that what they had done is they had just mirrored a generic night sky image. So it's not even that it was the wrong sky, but they actually just mirrored it to create the whole night sky. They just did like half an image and mirrored it. So he got a hold of James Cameron and said, hey, man, you know, love the movie. This is who I am, director of the Hayden Planetarium, blah, blah, blah. But you have the wrong sky. So when they did the first DVD re-release and all the subsequent releases, they asked him, well, can you provide us a sky? So Neil deGrasse Tyson made them a sky that they put in the subsequent re-releases of the movie. So that all the positions of the stars and all those shots are correct for that date and time.
That's insane. I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, most people don't notice it, but there are little things that some people notice it, and in the age of the internet, if one person notices, the whole world will know.
Yeah, I never noticed. I was too busy hating the fuck out of Cal.
Well, you're supposed to hate Cal. Which I feel like Billy Zane doesn't get enough credit for how good of a job he did with Cal.
Yeah.
Because, you know, your job was to hate him, and he did his job perfectly.
Like, I'm glad that Rose lived. Why did he have to live?
Well, technically, he died later, but
yeah. But like, I mean, he survived the initial thing. He survived the initial sinking.
Yeah, but if you think about it, though, Jack had to die from a narrative perspective.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because if Jack lives, then he and Rose go on. And I like to think, this is my weird twisted sense of the world. I don't like to think, but I hypothesize that had Jack and Rose both made it off the boat, like there's that, it's not a real theory, but there's kind of that internet theory that, what's the movie that Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet reunited for? Sorry, everyone. I have to look this up because it is. Oh, DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Yep. Revolutionary Road. Okay, I was right. There's kind of this unofficial Now, granted, that film's set in the 1950s, so it obviously can't be Jack and Rose. They would be much older. But there's a internet theory that Revolutionary Road is essentially a representation of how Jack and Rose would have ended up had Jack not died on the Titanic. I don't think it would have ended well for them. But that leads me into my other really controversial Titanic opinion, that it's Rose's fault. Rose killed Jack.
I think a lot of people think that, and I kind of agree with you.
Oh, it's not for the reasons you think, though. Everybody's so fixated on the door. The door is irrelevant. That's not how she did it.
How'd you do it?
So most people forget this scene. There's a point where Rose is on a lifeboat that's getting lowered down. And then she jumps off said lifeboat to, quote, be with Jack.
Yeah.
Well, if Rose had stayed on the boat, Jack would have had the door to himself.
I didn't think about that. Oh my God.
If Rose had just stayed on the damn boat, Jack would have been fine. Now, presumably, a lot of people hit back with, well, Cal was going to kill him. It's like, really? You don't think Jack could have dealt with Cal? And at least, the fact still stands that assuming everything else plays out the same, it's just Rose is not there for Jack to watch out for, Jack lives. So it's Rose's fault.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my God, you're so right.
Actually, that was the first epiphany moment I had with Titanic. Actually, that I remember now, because I was like, wait, she was in the boat. She just stayed in the boat. Everything would have been fine.
That just blew my mind.
So the moral of the story of Titanic: when somebody puts you in a lifeboat, you stay there.
You stay the fuck there.
You stay in the boat. You don't jump out of the boat.
Which, by the way, that could have went so many different ways. Had she not been able to grab the side of the boat, she could have fell all the way down. And
presumably, she could have still gotten back in the boat, but
yeah.
But
there were some risk factors when you jumped off of that boat. It's like, come on, dude.
What would she have done if Jack had been like, nah, you're too crazy for me. You're on your own. She was like, stop the boat.
Jumped back in.
Yeah, just jumps back in. So, fine. Just jumps back in. I would not have wanted to fall into that water, though. I don't know. Have you ever been to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee? Okay, so it's a permanent Titanic museum there, which I highly recommend anybody who ever makes their way to Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Definitely check it out. It's kind of pricey, but it's worth it. Part of the exhibit is you can put your hand in water that was the same temperature as it was that night. I'm telling you right now, you don't know what cold is.
Yeah, because we had the museum, but it was like a traveling, the traveling one, and I did that, and oh my God, it stung so bad.
It's like needles immediately.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, that's you think if you've never been in cold water, which I've never been submerged in it, like you think you know what cold water feels like, and then like where it kind of wears on you, you know. But I was not ready for that. I was like, like it's so cold it feels hot.
Yeah. I will say that's where I bought the Heart of the Ocean necklace. I have like a little tiny version of it to wear.
Oh, well, of course. Why would you not?
I mean, obviously.
Okay, so I have to, if Eric, he's not watching this right now because he's working, but he will watch this, and I have to do this for him because the first time I said it, it made him laugh so much, so now he brings it up all the time. I assume you're familiar with My Heart Will Go On. Yep. Okay, what you may not be familiar with is there's basically two versions of that song, and I apologize, I don't know which is which. I don't know if it's the single or the album version, but there is a random guitar bend in one of those two versions, but what I can tell you is if you look up the music video, the official music video on YouTube, the guitar bend is in there. But there's this moment after the line when it has the crescendo and she goes, "You're here, there's nothing I fear, and I know my heart will go on."
Yeah.
After that, there's just this awesome guitar bend that is in there for like maybe 2 or 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Totally changes the song.
I'm gonna have to look that up because now, like, that's hilarious.
But I think it's only in the single version, which is why it's in the music video. In the album version, I believe it's not there. And now whenever I listen to the album version, I'm like, oh. It makes it so much better.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that makes sense.
I'm a sucker for random guitar bends and solos that have no business being as good as they are. Like
solos make everything better.
But like there's some songs out there that have really good guitar solos and they shouldn't be in these songs, but they work. Yeah. Like are you familiar with the song Somewhere Out There?
Yep. Mm.
That guitar solo is amazing.
Yeah.
And it comes out of nowhere and you're just like, I thought this was a love song, but now we're raging. Let's do this. Ah. And then there's a song, Starship is the band. Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now. Mm-hmm. Another killer guitar solo.
Yeah.
In songs that shouldn't have them, but you're right. Guitar solos make everything better. Come to think of it, I've never heard a bad guitar solo.
I mean, that guitar solo in that Queen song, Bohemian Rhapsody, was awesome too. So that's Queen. So
that entire song is awesome. But
yeah.
Okay, so now I gotta ask because I'm also a massive Queen fan. What's your favorite Queen song?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, that's what everybody says.
Yeah.
Mine in particular, you may not have heard of this. Like, would you consider yourself a huge Queen fan or just an appreciator?
No, I'm a huge Queen fan.
Okay, so do you know have you heard the song "Too Much Love Will Kill You"?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. That's my favorite Queen song.
Yeah. My other favorite song is Another One Bites the Dust. That's my other favorite song.
That's a really good one. Which, incidentally, that is how you can find out if someone is actually a Queen fan. Is ask them like I just did. Have you heard the song "Too Much Love Will Kill You"? Or there's a bunch of others you can go. A lot of people have heard "Don't Stop Me Now." Maybe like "Show Must Go On." A lot of people know that song, but for some reason they don't know that it's Queen, even though, I mean, vocally, you can pick Freddie Mercury out of a lineup.
That movie was amazing too.
Bohemian Rhapsody was so good.
Rami Malek.
I've always liked Rami Malek, and I liked him in everything I've seen him in. Come to think of it,
yeah.
I even liked him as the Pharaoh, Night at the Museum, which I love those movies.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know what the hate wagon is on those. It's like, I get it. It's like a cutesy movie, but that's what it's supposed to be.
It's like sad to think about, like, because Robin Williams was in the last one, and it's sad to think about that was his last movie.
Robin Williams, yeah, and I've said this many times too. Which we can tie this back into Disney because I think they should have never remade Aladdin. I feel that way about all the live action remakes, but particularly Aladdin because it was not fair to expect Will Smith to, in any way, shape, or form, not even replicate, but just, replicate that performance. Mm-hmm. Like, whether it's fair or not, everybody was going to compare him to Robin Williams. And it's not that Will Smith is bad. I actually enjoyed his rendition as the genie. I thought it was actually one of the only few good parts of the movie. But
his rendition with that song, I can't. What's that song that he sang?
Is it "Friend Like Me" or "Prince Ali"?
Like Me.
Yeah.
Friend Like Me and Prince Ali both were like incredible.
Now, what's really funny though is there's a channel on YouTube. I'm kind of stealing from another video, so I don't want to like take credit for this because there's a channel on YouTube called Sideways that is if you're a musical theater nerd, you need to watch this guy's videos. But one of them, he talks about why all the music in the live action Disney remakes suck. And he talks about specifically with Aladdin, he talks about how they arranged both of those songs basically around Robin Williams' improvisation. So to have Will Smith come in and try to replicate that is not only unfair, it's just not going to work. What they should have done, he says, not me, but I agree with him. What he says they should have done is let Will Smith improv in his style for both those songs. And the irony is they let him do that for A Friend Like Me, but they play it during the end credits as opposed to the main movie. And I'm kind of like, now I agree with him too when he says, oh, I know why they did that, because they want to tell the audience, it's like, hey, you know, this is a new version of it, but it's still Friend Like Me. And I'm like, no. Like, people already know it's not going to be the same as Robin Williams because it's not Robin Williams. So you should have leaned into that. Well, first of all, you shouldn't have made the movie at all, but you should have leaned into it being Will Smith's rendition of the genie.
Right. Did they even do, like, because I know that some movies sometimes do like a little tribute here and there to the actors that other person's like doing, like, you know, I think they did it with they did do it with Mary Poppins a little bit.
I think I know what you're asking. Well, they did a little too much of it because they kind of replicated Robin Williams' performance as far as in the movie.
Yeah, okay.
Will Smith had a little bit of his own in it, but not as much as I think was appropriate.
Yeah.
So I think it was almost too similar to Robin Williams' performance. It was less of a nod and more of just a rendition.
Like a carbon copy kind of thing?
I wouldn't say a carbon copy because frankly, there's just things that Robin Williams did that Will Smith just can't do the same way.
Yeah.
The painful parts are, though, is when they try to do it and it just doesn't work. But I'll attack Disney's live action remakes again in a moment. But I did want to say something about Robin Williams. And Robin Williams, like, there's good performers in every generation. We know that. But just occasionally you have a literal 1 in a million. And Robin Williams was one of those. And he always, I may be a little bit biased because, like, I was kind of in that perfect spot to have grown up with Robin Williams. Because when I was young and when I was growing up, like, that's when he had really hit his, like, A-list stride and was making all these masterpieces that everybody remembers. But Robin Williams had this gift that I honestly, like, I don't think you can teach this, or you can try to teach it, but you're never going to do it quite like Robin Williams. Is if you go back and watch almost any of his movies, even comedies, you can see this. He had this way of looking where he'd be smiling, genuinely smiling, but had like this kind of sadness in his eyes at the same time. So it made a lot of those moments really bittersweet, and he didn't have to say a word. And not to mention, he's just a tremendous actor, because I don't know if you've seen the movie What Dreams May Come.
This is the only one I haven't seen.
It's out there, but holy shit, like, Robin just, I mean, hits it out of the park. Like, it's kind of a weird movie, but Robin Williams definitely gets a whole new level. And then you have a movie like Patch Adams that I didn't like when I was growing up because it was too damn sad.
I love Patch Adams.
Oh, I like it's
Doubtfire.
Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, Mrs. Doubtfire is almost a flawless movie.
Yeah.
In fact, I might go so far as to say it is a flawless movie, but I can't think of anything that's wrong with it. I got nothing.
I heard from somebody that they wanted to. They're not gonna do it because obviously not. But they wanted to make a second Miss Doubtfire. But everyone in the cast said no, because without Robin, it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. So there's, as kind of a general rule, I'm not a huge fan of remakes, but I've seen some remakes that were really well, West Side Story being one of them. but there are a handful of movies that there should be a list, and I think there actually might be an unofficial list, but I think there should actually be a list. And I'm normally a very libertarian person, but I think this should be codified into law. There's a list of movies that you just do not, like, they're blacklisted. You can't remake them. You can't change them. You can't do anything. And on that list, yeah, just don't touch them. And Mrs. Doubtfire's on that list, along with Casablanca. Really, Titanic is on that list. Like, just don't mess with it. There's more, but that's all I can think of. Because, like, could you imagine them trying to remake Titanic?
Oh, I would have been pissed.
Well, it's like, why would you? It's already been done to perfection.
Right. I saw this parody of, like, and I don't think this is real, but like someone made a parody of Titanic 2, Jack's Return.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
Oh my god, it's hilarious.
Toast, what do you mean by banning? Are you calling me out for banning? That's rich talk from a Canadian, Toast. But yeah, The Wizard of Oz is another one of those movies that now they've tried to remake that one, and thankfully they've always been shut down. But don't remake The Wizard of Oz. You can make Wicked. Aren't they making Wicked?
Yep, they're making Wicked with Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo.
Banning books or media in general. Toast, to be fair, I'm not talking about banning media. I'm talking about banning the possibility of remaking said media. Saying you cannot replicate this. But yeah, I saw that Ariana Grande is going to be Glinda, and as someone who a massive Ariana Grande fan because she's amazing, looking forward to that. Do we know who's playing Elphaba?
She's a Broadway actress named Cynthia Erivo.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know who's playing Fiyero?
Have you seen Bridgerton?
No, but I'm familiar with it.
The Daphne's brother is going to play Fiyero.
Okay.
Jonathan something. I can't remember his name.
Wow, okay. So this might actually turn out okay. Knock on wood. As long as they don't add songs, because Wicked is just fine on its own.
Yep.
In fact, you could even cut some numbers and it would still be okay. I'm not suggesting they cut numbers before you attack me in the comments. Hang on. I'm just saying they could and it would still be okay. We don't need to be adding numbers, though.
I heard from I saw something today, like a little teaser of like maybe Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth are going to be in it too.
I think they should, just as a nod.
They should.
Yeah. Actually, I know she's not playing Madame Morrible, but could you imagine Kristen Chenoweth playing Madame Morrible in the movie?
That would be so fantastic.
I don't know who you get. Actually, Idina might be better for Madame Morrible, although I don't know who you'd get to get Kristen Chenoweth. Wow, I just had a... I don't know who you would get Kristen Chenoweth to play.
There were like a couple of rumors at first that Dr. Delamon was going to be played by James Corden, and I got so pissed.
Oh, do you hate James Corden too?
I hate him
so much. I hate him. I've hated him. Yeah, I've hated him since the first time I saw him. And you know, here's the real reason. I kind of have this weird sixth sense most of the time. Like, it's really weird, but sometimes I can see somebody and be like, oh, he's a dick. And I could just tell. I didn't know who this dude was. I just saw he was on a late night show. I'm like, really? They replaced so-and-so with that? And then I started just hearing more about him, and apparently he's just a massive, talentless asshole.
I loved the movie Into the Woods, but I just did not like him in Into the Woods. Johnny Depp in Into the Woods, that was my favorite.
I actually didn't care for the movie, but I saw a high school stage production that had no business being as good as... Actually, I'll give them a shout out. Roncalli High School, their theater department, at least when I was in high school and seeing their plays, way better than a high school theater department should be. I saw Grease there, Into the Woods there, and Rebel Without a Cause, and all of them were phenomenally done. But yeah, their rendition of Into the Woods, and actually specifically an actor, I don't know if he still acts or not, but a gentleman by the name of Keith Lohman knocked all of his roles out of the park, in particular a local production of Something's Afoot, presented by the Shelby County Players. He stole the show and had me belly laughing the entire time. So Keith, fantastic job.
So you said that, I can't remember, did you say that the live action Aladdin shouldn't have happened, or do you think it should? It's okay that it happened.
For Into the Woods?
Yeah.
I just wasn't a fan of it, so I'm not going to go so far as to say they shouldn't have made it. I saw such a good stage production that I think it kind of ruined it for me in all other iterations.
Yeah. I'll tell you what should not have been made.
The live action Lion King.
Yeah.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah. And dare I say, Christopher Robin.
I actually liked Christopher Robin, but I probably understand why. You feel that way. But again, showing my real nerdiness here, Winnie the Pooh has always had a soft spot in my heart. I absolutely love Winnie the Pooh. And for me, Christopher Robin, because I grew up with Winnie the Pooh. So for me, Christopher Robin was kind of fun because it was all about how, his adult self rediscovers the whole thing. So I guess it kind of resonated with me. And then the fact of seeing Ewan McGregor call somebody a woozle to their face was just hilarious. Yeah. But why did you not like Christopher Robin?
I thought the story was a little not the story was just not good.
The story's a little weak. I'll give you that.
Yeah, the story's weak. I can pick. I know. I cannot think of the guy that played Eeyore. I didn't. He was in the Raymond show.
On what show?
That Raymond show with
Raymond. Yeah, I know who he is. I can never remember his name though, but I'll find it.
Yeah. I didn't like him as Eeyore. It didn't sound right.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And the puppets just looked creepy.
Okay, yeah, you're kind of, I'm not going to say you're ruining it for me, but you're kind of, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Like, Tigger looks terrifying, Eeyore looks terrifying, and Piglet looks cute, but also terrifying.
He's cute, but he's a little scary. Yeah. But do you prefer Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey?
Oh, that should not have been made.
I thought it was a joke for the longest time, and then somebody's like, no, they actually made that. And I was just like, oh, dear.
Why would they make that into a horror film?
I'm willing to bet, though, because I saw, and actually, quick rant, this is one of the reasons I hate TikTok as a platform, because it incentivizes people to steal other people's shit. But somebody uploaded, I guess, the prologue to that movie, and it was actually a little bit more interesting than I thought it was going to be, so I guess I'll give credit where credit's due. But speaking of things that aren't in the category of things that shouldn't have been made, it's time for a shameless plug segue to talk about Stevie Wicks, Cool Beans Candle Company. 4th of July is over. I'm sorry you won't be able to get the 4th of July candles until next year, but coming soon is the summer collection, including the Wild Watermelon Candle. And I now realize that my camera is mirrored, so I think I'm moving left and I'm moving right. So these are coming soon, and I am told there will be 5 candles of the summer collection, which will be available until Halloween, which is the next major holiday. And for those of you who know, the Halloween candles pull out all the stops. And if you use the promo code Arete at checkout, you can save 10% off your order. So go to steviewix.com. That's STEVIEWIX.com. Get your summer candles today and have your house smell fantastic. But speaking of things that shouldn't have been made, back to the Disney live action movie, specifically Lion King. I'll be honest, I've never met anyone who enjoyed it.
The Wildebeest Stampede, weak.
The whole movie's weak.
The whole movie's weak, but like that specific scene, very, very weak.
And the cardinal sin of that movie, why would you take out Be Prepared from The Lion King?
That's what I don't understand.
I think I do, and I think they got scared with Aladdin, and they knew that they weren't going to be able to replicate it, so they just got rid of it. Which I love how every time they have considerations like that, nobody at Disney ever stops to think, maybe we shouldn't do this. Maybe we should just not make this movie. But I say that, and they still all made ridiculous sums of money. Which is really sad.
Oh, they're making another one. They're making 2.
Which ones?
The Lion King.
What?
Specifically.
Oh,
Yep.
God.
Yep.
They're remaking The Lion King 2?
Yep. Same cast, too.
Really? They're going to get Beyonce to be in the background? Okay. See how well that negotiation goes.
Oh my god.
And you want to know what I think is a real crime? Because for The Lion King, you could have done this because, guess what? Except for the child actors, all those actors are still available and working. So you could have gotten Matthew Broderick to play adult Simba. Jeremy Irons is still working. Moira Kelly's still working. Other than some of the bit parts, maybe. We know Nathan Lane is still working. And I forget who played Pumbaa, but... But again, if you recycle the voice cast, then it begs the question, why are we remaking this movie? Because who wants to watch a photorealistic... Who wants to watch a version of The Lion King with photorealistic animals?
Right.
Because it was so dull looking because the original was so vibrant and colorful and all the character, because the animation was freaking flawless, that all the characters were so expressive and they could convey so much with a look. And I'm sorry, lions are not all that expressive animals.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you can never read panic on a lion's face because their faces just don't move that way.
Right. I mean, I love James Earl Jones in that movie.
Oh, James Earl Jones, yeah.
The fact that they got him to play Mufasa.
I forgot they got him to play Mufasa.
Yeah.
So they did recycle one voice cast member.
Yep.
Okay, I stand corrected. You should have just recycled the voice cast.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, you're right. They did get him to play Mufasa.
Which I don't understand why they didn't do that with everybody.
That's what I'm saying.
James Earl Jones.
Yeah, you got James Earl Jones, and like I said, everybody's still working.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you recast the kids, which, I mean, that's inevitable because Jonathan Taylor Thomas does not sound young anymore. But
yeah.
And also, I don't think he's acting anymore, but I digress. Yeah, I'm trying to think. What was the latest one they... Oh, The Little Mermaid, duh. Which I have not watched yet, but I should. But I really didn't want to go to the theater and give them money for that. And the reason... It's not just Little Mermaid. I legitimately don't want to contribute. I don't want to pay Disney any money to continue this conveyor belt of live-action remakes because they've all been... I guess Cinderella was all right. I haven't watched the live-action remake of Cinderella. I've been told it's the only good one.
That one is good. That one's very good.
Okay, so I guess there's one good one, but it's worth noting that Cinderella's technically... Cinderella's not technically a musical. Is?
Yep.
Oh, no, yes, it is. Yes, it is, technically.
Yep, it's on Broadway. Or
Yep.
it was on Broadway.
You're right. It is. But did they do a music? Did they make the live action remake as a musical?
No.
That might be why it worked.
Meh. I think they took more inspiration from like the old Grimm's fairy tale.
Which, yeah, maybe. Which I guess that's kind of a. I guess if they'd taken that approach with the live action remakes and gone closer to the original source material, I think that might have been okay. But from what I've seen, Cinderella would have been the only one that did that. Everything else stayed fairly true to the Disney retelling.
Yeah, but I understand why they didn't do that with the Little Mermaid because the real story is like
Yeah.
little gruesome.
A little?
A lot of gruesome.
It's quite bad, actually. It's kind of a downer.
You turn to the sea foam. That's not for kids.
No, it is not. And then there's others. Although one aspect that I think could have made it a little bit interesting if they'd taken this from the original is that when she uses her legs, it's painful.
Yeah.
That might have been interesting. Like maybe not painful all the time, but like if she walks too much. I don't know how you could have incorporated that into the script, but...
Maleficent was good too.
I did not care for Maleficent, but that goes into my sort of disdain for... Because Maleficent is the best part of Sleeping Beauty because she's just a true blue villain, and there's a reason she's the main baddie in Kingdom Hearts, guys. Well, I guess she's not the main baddie, but she's one of them. Oh, no, she's... I don't know if have you played Kingdom Hearts?
Oh, yeah, I have all the games.
Okay, I'm trying to remember. I guess Ansem would be the main baddie, but I feel like Maleficent's the main.
I think she is because she's the one that's like controlling everything.
Yeah, she's orchestrating everything. Yeah. And I remember the first time I played it, which shame on me, I actually have only played Kingdom Hearts 1. I have Kingdom Hearts 2, but I haven't played it yet because I have no free time because I do podcasts all the time. But I remember when I first saw her in that game and I was like, oh yeah, this is good.
Mm-hmm.
This is so good.
I've been playing Kingdom Hearts 3. Kingdom Hearts 3 is great.
I mean, I'm sure they're all fantastic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's something... I want to know why Disney didn't try to do a series out of that, because I think that's just... Or heck, even... I don't know that you could do a film franchise. I think there's just too much going on.
Mm-hmm.
But a series, I mean, that's... Disney Plus series, I mean, that print money. That was multiverse before multiverses were cool.
Yeah.
Although I guess they'd have to get the rights from Square. I'm sure. Just throw money at them. I'm sure they'll be fine with it.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, let's be real. That's what Disney did with Sony and Spider-Man No Way Home, and that worked out great. They just threw money at it.
That's what brings me back all the way back to the beginning of our conversation about the rise of the Pink Slaves. They're throwing money at you, so why did you cancel it?
Well, but it showed like going back to that, yeah, nice circle. That happens a lot when it's like a circle. But yeah, I mean, if for some reason, and I don't know what the numbers are, but like if Rise of the Pink Ladies just didn't deliver the numbers, which you said it was only on for 3 weeks, so how could you even come close to quantifying? Somebody said something to somebody or did something, and they're being punished. I'm convinced that's what it has to be.
Because this is way different than movies. With movies, yeah, you like, of course, that's gonna get a big rating in like, short amount of time. This is a TV show.
Well, it's not even. Yeah, it's not even a TV show. It's a stream TV show. So there's no direct advertiser. Like you'll see good numbers over time, but it's not like traditional TV where you see immediate, not immediate, but you see ratings based upon, quarter-hour segments, and those numbers translate to advertising dollars. Like, I could be wrong, but I don't think advertisers can necessarily have preferential ads on certain shows, although maybe they can. But even so, it's like 3 weeks is not enough time to judge a streamed show.
Right.
Especially when I don't even think I'd heard about it until it got canceled.
Right.
Which, did they really advertise it either?
They're still advertising that the show. It's like
Either
yeah,
that, or maybe, and for the record, I don't think this is true, but this is a possibility. They might be doing all this just to drum up interest, and then they're going to re-release it. Which, that would just be so shady.
yeah. It's shady. It's shady that they're selling their merch still.
That's one reason why I think they might be doing this. But they, like I said earlier, they could just be trying to burn off all the merch. But I find that hard to believe because, like I said before, it's like Grease merchandise sells even without a movie or a TV show.
But they're also doing it with that Star Trek show that got canceled too.
And again, I find that weird because Star Trek has had some series that people really didn't like. I don't know if you know that much about Star Trek, but when Star Trek Enterprise was on TV, like, a lot of people hated it. Personally, I liked Enterprise, but it was totally different. I see why people, and then certain people hate Voyager, and certain people hate Deep Space Nine, which is the best. So I don't know I don't know what's wrong with those people, but like there's difference of opinions among Trekkies about which one's the best and which ones are even good, but like, to just cancel one, that's unprecedented.
Right.
Well, not cancel, but to cancel it and to
strip it.
Yeah, just erase it from existence.
Yeah. And especially I feel bad because, like, all that hard work everyone did is
That's the
gone.
worst. That's the worst part of it. Like, again, that's the worst part about it being erased.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a project being scrapped, because, like, some people have done work, but it's not a complete project. Like, they should at least have the decency to sell the rights. Or hell, sell the content. Just license it.
Right.
Which, you got to think, if HBO Max comes out with their series, you got to think that, like, the license for Pink Lady should be part of that.
Right.
I mean,
I agree.
You would think, because they already have the rights to create a show in the Grease universe.
Right.
Like, that would go hand in hand. So it almost becomes like an unofficial season 0 of their show.
I just imagine if Olivia Newton-John was still alive in here, she would be pissed about this situation.
I don't think they would have canceled it. Has John Travolta commented?
No.
Well, he's too busy doing Scientology stuff, I guess. But yeah, I agree with you. If Olivia Newton-John was still alive, I don't think they would have canceled it. Because I think she would have thrown up a couple of red flags. Well, we've been going at it for almost 2 hours. You feel like wrapping it up, or you want to keep going?
Yeah, we can wrap it up if you want.
Yeah, that's good. We'll save some for the West Side Story. I probably went too far with it, but any closing thoughts?
Just subscribe to my podcast.
Yeah. And how can people support Rise of the Pink Ladies if they want to do so?
There is a link in my TikTok bio, which I put a link in the description of my podcast video that I did. That there's a GoFundMe, or not GoFundMe, like a little change.org petition going on. So you can sign that petition. You can post like your thoughts about the show, or email all of those. You can email all of the subscription networks like HBO Max and everyone. So email those streaming services and let them know that you want the show to stay.
Actually, I'm surprised nobody's called for this, of people just canceling their Paramount Plus subscriptions.
Oh, I did.
I was going to say, well, that, like, obviously you can get it back, but you're sending a message. If a bunch of people cancel their subscriptions and they usually ask you why, write that in the, other option and then specify. If enough people do that, trust me, they'll bring it back in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I think that's another thing everyone should do. Just cancel your subscriptions if you have Paramount Plus. Just cancel it.
Just get rid of it. Send them a message. Alrighty, well, definitely check out Part of Your Broadway World Podcast here on YouTube. There is a link in the description, and I believe it's linked in the title too, so we made it nice and easy for you. And stay tuned for more episodes from Part of Your Broadway World and the Arete Podcast. Also, if you go to aretemedia.org, you can see all the audio podcasts all in one convenient place. So we've made it easy for you, so you have no excuse. Let's see, what else do we got? And then there's also links there to our merchandise store if you're interested in that. As always, please like, share, and subscribe the video. It's how we let YouTube know that you want more of our content, and it helps us get the word out there, get our subscriber counts up, and all that good stuff. And just tell your friends about it, because let's face it, I mean, we like to think we produce content that you guys want to see. But thank you for enjoying this episode of the Arete Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe it if you haven't already. And we will see you in the month of August.